What is up, history and media arts class? Hope y'all are having a good day. Got a banger topic for y'all. We got the history of diss tracks. So I thought it would be a good topic to go over, and to get started, we're going to start back in old Scotland with flighting. The earliest known form of a poetic insult battle called flighting was the flighting of William Dunbar and Walter Kennedy. Now, these two, both poets in Scotland, and so really had some issues with each other. And as evidence suggests, they basically had a court-sanctioned poem joust. Because, I mean, if you're a poet in the 16th century, how else are you supposed to get your arguments across if not for a battle, right? The interesting thing about the flighting of Dunbar and Kennedy is it really shows the use of oral culture in old Scotland at the time, and the way that insults were used back in that time. There's a lot of cultural significance to this flighting, and it gives us a lot of understanding of how insults were used at the time. Paul Robichaud looks at some examples of these insults and the patterns they all kind of take within the flighting. And so examples of these insults are things such as bribor bayard and ragged rook, and then also stuff like motch mutton, bite button, and pleat glutton. So a lot of this seems like nonsense to us nowadays. It is kind of silly. It's like very repetitive. There's always patterns. So he always uses adjectives followed by alliterating nouns, and that's kind of where the ragged rook comes from. As you can tell, there's just a lot of cultural things going on with these insults. Now, after looking at the very first primitive form of what we would call a diss track, we jump to 1984, and this is where we find the very first modern diss track with a thing called the Roxanne Wars. Now, the Roxanne Wars was a diss beef between Lolita Shante Gooden, or her stage name was Roxanne Shante, and a rap trio group called UTFO. Roxanne Shante was walking down New York, and she heard a song called Roxanne Roxanne by UTFO, and she decided to make an answer backtrack, and she called it Roxanne's Revenge. The issue with this is that she kind of just used the music from Roxanne Roxanne and ended up having a huge hit with Roxanne's Revenge. It sold 250,000 copies in New York alone. UTFO isn't happy that she used their music. They go to court with her, and it's decided that she has to re-record, and so she makes a whole different song. This leads to a rap beef between the two, and it goes on for a long time. Both of them release different songs, and it's one of the biggest rap beefs in history. What the Roxanne Wars were really able to accomplish, other than creating the modern diss track, they created feminist hip-hop, and it created a space for feminist hip-hop artists to debate their ideas. It gave them a safe space to debate and fight the patriarchal system within hip-hop at the time. Without the Roxanne Wars, it would have been way harder for artists like Salt and Peppa become as big as they were. And now, even though it is very male dominated still, we have artists like Cardi B, like Megan Thee Stallion, and Doechii. The list is only growing. There are huge female hip-hop artists today, and a lot of their success comes from what the Roxanne Wars were able to accomplish. Just like how flighting affected the culture of 1600 Scotland, the Roxanne Wars affected the culture of feminist hip-hop. Let's look at what the cultural effects of modern diss tracks are. In the 1990s, you had Tupac versus Biggie, which, led to the death of both. In the 2010s, YouTube created a meme culture around diss tracks. You had epic rap battles of history, Jake Paul versus Logan Paul, Good Mythical Morning doing their joke rap battles. It was more about internet culture in the 2010s with rap battles. And then you come to today, and we got Kendrick versus Drake. Kendrick is performing his diss track at the Super Bowl. Christian Freed says that because hip-hop is fundamentally grounded in competitive artistic expression, they've created their own discourse. To understand what the insults within these diss tracks are, you have to be able to look at it contextually. Like, an example would be Kendrick's use of A minor within his song Not Like Us. The entirety of music in hip-hop pop culture of 2024 is centered around one single diss track. What I'd like to say to end this off is, in a world that's so politically uncertain, it's a good idea to understand we have this art form that is so culturally impactful, and maybe it can be used in different ways than we ever thought.